Today we have the second part of our motivation topic, motivation part 2, and we are going to look at the contemporary theories of motivation. After studying this part of the chapter, you should be able to apply the predictions of cognitive evolution theory to intrinsic and extrinsic rewards, compare and contrast goal-setting theory and management by objectives, and be able to contrast reinforcement theory and goal-setting theory, and then demonstrate how organizational justice is a refinement of equity theory, and then apply the key tenets of the expectancy theory to motivating employees. Finally, we will compare contemporary theories of motivation and then explain to what degree motivation theories are culture bound. The contemporary theories that we are going to look at are the self-determination theory, the goal-setting theory, the self-efficacy theory, the reinforcement theory, the equity theory, and then the expectancy theory. Self-determination theory. Our focus here will be on cognitive evaluation theory. What is this theory about, the self-determination theory? It is a theory of motivation concerned with the beneficial effects of intrinsic motivation and the harmful effects of extrinsic motivation. The idea here that what motivates from within is very powerful. What is within you that motivates you to wake up in the morning and go to work is more powerful than what you get out of that work in terms of rewards, in terms of salaries, in terms of other things. So the intrinsic reward is more powerful than the extrinsic reward. So cognitive evolution theory is a version of the self-determination theory that holds that allocating extrinsic rewards for behavior that had been previously intrinsically rewarded tends to decrease the overall level of motivation of if the rewards are seen as controlling. There's an example when somebody used to volunteer and was doing very well as a volunteer, no pay. But when they started paying him, his performance went down. And this was very unique because many people go to work to get rewarded tangibly. But this particular person was so motivated working without any payment. And when they started to pay him, his performance dropped. And that's where the issue of cognitive evolution comes in. People think that their reward that are being given is going to be used to control them, their ability to think, their ability to act, their ability to take responsibility, their ability to really think. So when you say, okay, now you've been volunteering, now we are going to pay you, and then it becomes, the performance goes down. That is what cognitive evolution theory is about. So the major implications of the work rewards, once again, intrinsic and extrinsic rewards are not independent, and therefore extrinsic rewards tend to decrease intrinsic rewards. And verbal rewards increase intrinsic motivation, while tangible rewards reduce it. If you say thank you for the work you have done, according to this theory, you get more motivation as opposed to when you pay me for that work. So that is the power of cognitive evaluation. people have the ability to evaluate that they have the capacity in themselves to perform without necessarily being externally rewarded. So that also brings us the concept of self-concordance. When the person reasons for pursuing goals are consistent with personal interests and core values, then people are happier and more successful. But when the purpose of pursuing something is not consistent with that person's interests and core values, then they are not happy, and therefore their performance can be low. So we've finished our first theory. We move on to Locke's goal setting theory. This theory says that specific and difficult goals with feedback lead to higher performance. So if you want to perform, set goals that are specific but also difficult. When that kind of goal is set and there's feedback on the performance, that will lead to higher performance. So why? Because difficult goals focus and direct attention. Difficult goals energize a person to work harder, and difficulty increases persistence and force people to be more effective and efficient. But it's also important to note that relationships between goals and performance depends on the goal commitment, if the goals are publicized, the better. Tasks characteristics, if the tasks are simple or simpler and well-defined, that makes it easier. And culture. The culture also determines how goal setting relates with performance. There are cultures where individual goals are not quite entertained. Goals are set as group goals. So now if you want to relate goal setting with individual performance, and yet your environment does not allow you to set individual goals, then the relationship between goals and performance will not be very clear. Yeah, so there are cultures where individualism is at its best, goal setting is very highly valued. And so you'll find everybody setting goals, and it's those goals that influence performance. So another version of goal setting theory is the management by objectives. Management by objectives. This is a systematic way to utilize goal setting, and those goals must be tangible, verifiable, and measurable. Well, we always talk about SMART goals. SMART goals. Are they specific? Are they measurable? Are they realistic? Are they time-bound? Those things are important when you're setting goals. So corporate goals are broken down into smaller and more specific goals at each level of the organization. And the four common ingredients of management by objectives are: the goal must be specific, there must be participatory decision making, there must be explicit time period, and there must be performance feedback. When those things are not there, management by objectives will not work very well. So ensure that there is specificity of the goal. Participation is by decision. Decision making is participatory. Explicit time is given, and performance feedback is given. Once that is there, goal management by objectives will work very well. The third theory here is Bandura's self-efficacy theory. Other people call that theory social cognitive theory, and others call it the social learning theory. It refers to an individual's belief that he or she is capable of performing a task. Just a belief that you are capable of performing a task. The higher the efficacy, the greater the confidence, the greater the persistence in the face of difficulties, and the better response to negative feedback. The work becomes hard. If you have a higher efficacy, you will be able to penetrate that. So self-efficacy complements goal setting. So if you believe that you can manage something, then you can go ahead and confront it. If you have a very low self-efficacy, even your goal, the goal you have set, you may not be able to accomplish it. That's how the relationship between goal setting and this self-efficacy theory comes in. How do you increase self-efficacy in yourself? According to Albert Bandura, who proposes the self-efficacy theory, he proposes 4 ways self-efficacy can be increased in oneself. One is enactive mastery. What does that mean? The most important source of efficacy is gaining relevant experience with the task or the job. You must master the job. You know the common practice makes perfect. So you must practice, 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 practice. Once you practice, you gain experience. And once you have the experience, your self-efficacy increases. 2 is vicarious modeling. What does that mean? You become more confident because you see someone else doing the task. Vicarious modeling. So the most effective way, it's more effective when observer sees a model to be similar to him or her. So this is where mentoring, you could call where mentoring comes in. When you sit near your mentor and you see how your mentor does his or her things, then you can be able to imitate. That is vicarious modeling. You observe your mentor, you observe the way he does his or her things, and through that observation, you are able to imitate and do something. That is vicarious modeling. When you can learn from your mentor, you can be able to increase your self-efficacy. The third way to increase self-efficacy is verbal persuasion. We become more confident when someone convinces us that we have the skill necessary to be successful. If somebody comes around and says, Joseph, you can do this. Joseph, you can't fail here. Joseph, you have never failed before. Joseph, you can do this. Verbal persuasion helps us be able to increase our self-efficacy. And the final way we can increase our self-efficacy is arousal. Arousal means it leads to energizing state, so we get psyched up and feel up to the task. And feel up to the task and then perform better. This can hurt performance if emotion is not a component of the task. So you must get energy from somewhere. You have to get energy from somewhere. So you have to build up your psychology. You have to build up your mental capacity to feel up to the task. You must get energy from somewhere to feel up, to measure up to the task. That will help you to build your self-efficacy, and then you can be able to perform better. So it's also important to remember that intelligence and personality are absent from this Bandura model, but they too can increase self-efficacy. So the fourth theory here is our reinforcement theory. What is reinforcement theory? It is a theory that says behavior is a function of its consequences. This is similar to goal-setting theory, but focuses on behavioral approach rather than the cognitive one. So, according to Skinner, who is a prominent advocate of this self-reinforcement theory, when you perform something, when you perform an activity, and that activity is appreciated, you will get the energy to do it better, to do more. So reinforcement, when somebody says thank you for doing something, then you get more energy. That thank you reinforces that behavior. That thank you reinforces that behavior so that you are able to do it again and again and again and again. So Skinner also brings in another concept called operant conditioning, which is that internal cognitive event, okay? That feeling, that inner attitude, that expectation. People will most likely engage in desired behavior if positively reinforced. And that behavior comes automatically in a relatively unconscious manner. Once you reinforce a behavior, that behavior will be repeated. Once you punish a behavior, that behavior will diminish and disappear. So if someone does some work and then you constantly, instead of saying thank you, you're constantly criticizing, that person will lose morale and be able to perform worse than before. But a thank you, and sometimes even a physical reward in terms of pay rise, terms of promotion, can bring about serious reinforcement that brings increased performance. So behavior in this aspect is controlled by its consequences. Those consequences are the reinforcers. So reinforcement strongly influences behavior, but not likely to be the sole cause of behavior. Reinforcement influences behavior, but reinforcement does not cause behavior. It only increases that behavior. So in this respect, you can't say a thank you causes a particular behavior, but it increases it, reinforces it. The fifth contemporary theory here is Adams' equity theory. What is this equity theory about? It's about employees who compare the ratios of their outcomes to the inputs they put in. So every time an employee goes to work, he's trying to compare what input he has invested in that work compared to what outcome he receives from that work. If I put in so much and then my reward is so little, I will consider my input greater than my output, and therefore I will feel there is inequity. Of course, if I put in so little and I get so much, I will also consider my input to be less than my outcome, and that is also uncomfortable. So equity theory is about the balancing of inputs and outputs. So when the ratios are equal, there's what we call the state of equity. When the ratios are not equal, there's a tension due to unfairness. Although it is very unfamiliar that somebody complains that you have paid me more than I have put in. That normally doesn't happen. But when you're paid less than what you're put in, there will be complaint. There will be a cry. Somebody will cry foul. I am unfairly treated. So under rewarded states cause anger, over rewarded states can cause guilt. And therefore this tension motivates people to act to bring this situation into equity. So there will be efforts to balance out that equation. So who are the relevant others in the equity theory? The proponents of this theory find about four relevant others. The first one is what we call the self-insight. The self-insight. The person's experience in a different job is this. The person's experience in a different job in the same organization. So somebody compares his experience in a different job. This is probably for people who have been in different jobs. They just compare their experience in a different job in the same organization. There's also what we call the self-outside. The self-outside is that person's experience in a different job, the person's experience in a different job in a different organization. And there's the other inside, which is another individual or group within the organization. And finally, the other outside, which is an individual or group outside of the organization. Those are the different parties that are called relevant others in the equity theory. Other examples we can give later. What are the reactions to equity theory or inequity? Employers' behaviors that can create equity. There are basically 6 alternatives here. When there is inequity, when there is perceived inequity, employers behave as follows. 1, they can change inputs. Say, I've been putting in too much. I will reduce my input because what I'm paid is less than what I get, what I put in. So they can slack off. That's one way. The second way is to change outcomes. So I can increase the output because the output is less than my input. So I can increase the output so that the equation is balanced. The third option is to distort or change perceptions of the self. What does that mean? An example is, I used to think I worked at a moderate rate, but now I realize I work a lot harder than everyone else. So that beginning to evaluate one's perception. I am working too much. My reward is not commensurate with what I do. So I think I will reduce. I used to think I worked at a moderate rate, but now I realize I work at a harder rate than everyone else. Beginning to think through that. The fourth option is to distort or change perceptions of others. An example is, Mike's job isn't as desirable as I thought. Beginning to think about your neighbor. The fifth option is to choose a different referent person. I may not make as much as my brother-in-law, but I am doing a lot better than my dad did when he was at my age. So that is also another way of trying to minimize the inequality. You try to console yourself. I may not make as much as my brother-in-law, yes, but I am doing much better than my dad when he was at my age. And finally, number 6, leave the field, namely, quit the job. So when you think that inequality cannot be handled, you just quit. So propositions relating to equitable pay. 1, paid by time. Therefore, over-rewarded employees produce more, and under-rewarded employees produce less with low quality. So those are the propositions relating to inequitable pay. So it's bad to have inequity in payments work because the consequences are not good. If you over-reward somebody, they'll produce more. If you under-reward them, they produce less. But when we are paid by quality, then over-rewarded employees give higher quality. And then under-rewarded employees make more of low quality. Those are all disadvantages. So now, let's bring in justice to the equity theory. There's what we call organizational justice. What is it? Organizational justice is about one's overall perception of what is fair in the workplace. And is made up of distributive justice, are the outcomes, are the rewards fair? That is distributive justice. You all work, but how do you compare what you get from the work you do? Are they fair? Is the distribution fair? If the distribution is not fair, you call that unfairness in outcome. The distribution is not fair. The second set of justice is procedural justice. The process of work. If you are talking about how payments have been increased, how promotion has been done, was the process fair? Were people promoted fairly? Were the raise in salaries fairly done? Did they follow procedure? Did they follow the policy? Once that is done, you can say that the procedure is fair. And so we have procedural justice. The third set of fairness is called interactional justice, being treated with dignity and respect. When you interact with your supervisors, when you interact with your managers, how do they treat you? Do they consider you junk? Do they treat you like junk? Do they respect you? Do they give you dignity in the discussions? Once that is there, you can consider there is interactional justice in this organization. Otherwise, you will say the interaction is very unfair. There's then what we call, and so in summary, the distributive and procedural justice are more strongly associated with task performance, while something we call informational and interpersonal justice are strongly associated with citizenship behaviors. I don't know how I skipped informational justice. Informational justice is about how information is distributed in an organization. You don't want to work for an organization where information is only given to some people and not to others. It's very, very painful to discover that your colleagues have information that you don't have. So if there's communication that's supposed to be made, everybody should get the opportunity to receive that information. Otherwise, they might announce something which is very important for all of you, and then you don't get the information. And by the time you get it through other people, third hand or fourth hand, you are late, you can't do much. That brings a feeling of unfairness in informational justice. So information should flow in an organization without unfairness, without favor, without segregation. So when there's informational justice, there's interpersonal justice, you find the organization will raise up people who love the organization. Citizenship behavior is about people who do more than they are asked to do. I become a citizen and I will die for that country. So even an organization, you can become a citizen. So that when they ask you to go 1 mile, you go 2 miles. Because they say, oh, this is my organization. So when there is perception of informational fairness and perception of interpersonal fairness, then people can go all the way. They feel they belong and they can do citizenship behaviors all the time. Why does justice have these positive effects, like we have just seen? Fair treatment enhances commitment to the organization and makes employees feel it cares about their well-being. All of us like to be treated fairly. If you feel you are being treated fairly, you will feel at home and you will commit. If you feel you are unfairly treated, you will withdraw and you will not work like you'd love to work. So fair treatment elicits positive emotions, which in turn prompts behaviors like citizenship behaviors. Sixth theory in this among the contemporary theory is Broome's expectancy theory. What does this mean? This is a theory that says that the strength of a tendency to act in a certain way depends on the strength of an expectation that the act will be followed by a given outcome and the attractiveness of the outcome, that individual. Expectation. What do you expect from your activity? What do you expect from your investment of energy? What do you expect when you go to wake up very early in the morning and you go to work and you work from 8:30 up to 5 or 6 o'clock? What do you expect? So, expectancy has a link with performance. When you have expectancy that what you do will be rewarded or will be followed by some outcome which is attractive, then you will work. So expectancy leads to performance success. Expectancy brings about success generally, and evaluation of the reward is important in the further performance. Now, we conclude this chapter by trying to bring integrating all the other theories that we have looked at. So it's important to note that many of the theories in this chapter are complementary. First, goal setting reminds us that goals direct behavior. Without goals, you have nothing to do. Without goals, you cannot claim to have achieved anything. So goals direct behavior. If you see people bending on their computers the whole day, that means they have a goal and they are making sure that they fulfill their goals. So goal setting is very important. Expectancy theory predicts employees will exert a high level of effort if they perceive a strong relationship between effort and performance, then performance and reward, and then rewards and satisfaction of personal goals. So expectancy theory is important. Without expectation, you have nothing to do. You have to expect. Be expectant. If you expect that what you are doing will be rewarded, will be welcomed and rewarded, then you have every reason to exist, every reason to do something. So that expectancy makes them also to exert effort. And if that effort is rewarded, then performance will be high. Expectancy theory comes in the rewards-goal relationship in the way whereby motivation is high if the reward for high performance satisfy the dominant need consistent with your goals. So once again, we bring the goals in the picture. Expectation to do an activity will lead to performing the activity well. Once you perform the activity well, and there is high hope that you will be rewarded well, then you are motivated to perform well, and that performance will help you to achieve your goal, which you had set at the beginning. And then lastly, reinforcement theory recognizes that the organization's reward reinforces the individual's performance. Once you do something well and you are recognized, that recognition reinforces your performance. So the next time you are coming to do the work, you will be reinforced by the reward that you were given the other day. And then the cycle goes on and on. Yes, I did something, I was rewarded. That reward reinforced my performance. I perform now better this time. I was again rewarded for it. Then it reinforces better performance. And also you can see it linking back to your personal goals. You set some goals at the beginning that you want to achieve at the end of the year, the end of the month, and the end of the semester. So this reinforcement, we also have reinforcement for students in class. When you do a good job, and then your work is excellent, and then we say, excellent work, super work. This is a one-time work and something like that. That encourages you. That reinforces. Next time you're going to do some assignment, you say, I want the same kind of comments on my work, if not better. So that reinforces you to perform better. Once you perform better and you're rewarded again, that reinforces you again to increase more effort. And therefore, before long, you'll find you have met your goal. I wanted to get a first-class degree. Before long, you have your first-class degree. Therefore, if employees see a reward system as paying off for good performance, the rewards will reinforce and encourage good performance. So rewards also play a key part in organizational justice research. And we have already seen that rewards are important. Once the input is not commensurate with the output, people will feel unfair. People will think this organization is very unfair. There is no justice here. But when the rewards are commensurate with your performance, then you say there is fairness here, the procedure is fair, the distribution is fair, the interaction is fair, and the informational flow is fair. With that, we come to the close of this chapter. God bless you.